Ryan Marsh. I'm principal here at Evergreen Elementary School. Been in the district since the 20th century, and really love Perk Valley. Was asked to start this evening's presentation. I'm really pleased to do so and honored to do so. So welcome to Evergreen. I'm currently the principal here at Evergreen. I've served throughout buildings in the district in my time. You can see our, tonight is the topic. You're all here, you know the topic, and we want to really talk to you tonight. And my job this evening is to really go from big picture, and we're going to get in some real specifics then tonight as well for you as a community to look at. We will take questions and we'll take questions and comments at the end of the presentation just so we can go through. There are several slides with lots of details, so we want to make sure we go through that with you. Before I do some introductions, simply want to, as I said, go big picture. This is our guiding star, so to speak. I reference this as a school principal all the time with the faculty and staff and make connections to it. Obviously, we want to include our students. We want to empower our students. We want them to have the options and grow. And the key word in there is growth, that intellectual, social, and academic growth. Very important. And we as a district, again, sets our North Star. This is what really guides a lot of our efforts as our mission. We have shared beliefs. I certainly won't read all of these to you, but you can take a look at what we believe in having supportive schools and our partnerships. And I do think in my time in Perkiomen Valley, and I think this evening's an example of it. We got lots of thoughts and ideas and opinions in the room, I'm sure. But this evening's an example of something I think is great about PV in my time here is we really do work to try to partner. We really do try to work to hear the voice. We really do try to work to meet with people where they are and help them along as we work to lead the district, certainly. Obviously, safety is a priority under support, and giving our kids those opportunities, empowering them to have those opportunities that when they get to that point, they're ready with the skill sets and the background knowledge to take those choices and options that they would like as they move forward. Our comprehensive plan goes back to 2022. We hang a lot of our efforts, obviously this makes sense, on these. The comprehensive plan, as a quick overview, is something required by the state that is done every 3 years. Our draft plan is in review now, but this is, again, more detail and guiding us in what we are focusing on with our students and our programming. So tonight we're going to do some introductions real quick. I'll take you through the information that we've had to date. And then we'll have a couple other folks coming up talking about the whys and the what fors for the options, and we'll share some of those options, consider details around those. I'll share some next steps at the end. We'll have a time for some question and answer. So welcome. This is our administrative team. I told them up front I'm not going to announce everyone by name or we'll be here for an extra half an hour. But we have our administrative team up front here with us, as is pictured here. Members of that team have made up the facilities task force that has really delved into this work, looking at the potential options around the needs. So there's our purpose. Okay, we would like everybody to have the opportunity to see and understand the opportunities and challenges we're working with, and really look at our service delivery for students. You will get a chance at the end to share thoughts and any questions. And please note down at the bottom, this is not a final decision. This is not a decision administrators make. The recommendation is in from administration and Dr. Russell, but we do not make that decision. The board would make that decision. So there's no final recommendations or anything tonight. To be clear, that recommendation has been made for the 5-6 center to the board. That's what they are formally considering now. So information to date, okay? So you can see some of the challenges that we have, right? We know, and I can tell you in our time, the diverse needs of students have changed. We work to meet our students where they are with those needs. That real hallmark, I think, of Perk Valley, in my time has been the caring that's expressed and the expertise and knowledge in the teaching and learning that happens. So obviously we want to make sure that as the needs evolve, we're doing the best we can programmatically for our kids, okay? And delivery of those programs and the subjects, and you can see that there in bold, all students, facilities, classrooms, and services, provider spaces, and grade level transitions, all right? And we do face currently some real issues in space in 3 of the 4 elementary schools. This elementary school, Evergreen, is the only one going into next year that we do actually have a little bit of room. The other buildings, the other 3 elementary schools do not. And you'll hear more about that as we go through. We've considered the shift to a 5-6 intermediate building at West and a 7-8 at East. That is the formal recommendation. We've considered and gone through the process of looking at the research and background and running our numbers. That was last month's meeting, much of that, at looking at a primary center at Evergreen. And in short, the capacity that would bring, how you cut it, we would not be able to service that here. Shift to grade 5 students from South and Evergreen to East and West, creating 2 5 to 8 middle schools. And you'll hear tonight some of the reasons why from my colleagues, why that was considered and we did not make that recommendation. Okay, so why a 5-6 and a 7-8? Why make West a campus that's a 5-6 and East a building that is a 7-8? This is one of the most important slides I think we're showing tonight because, again, we have a lot of experienced folks in the district, and in my time, this is really the heart and soul of what Perk Valley is about and really what we're trying to do for our kids. And I'm not glossing over the concerns or anything like that families have. But if you look at this, these are the things that we have valued over time. You go back to when we opened West. We value this. And now we have the opportunity to enhance many of these, all those that are listed here. And we really do. We know as a school district, I say this all the time in the building. We are responsible and take care of the community's most valuable possessions. Okay, we keep those students in the center of that discussion. And that is not without having many other ancillary things that go on around us, but we really work to keep our kids at the center of the discussion. And I think that's been a point of pride at Perk Valley as well through my time. Okay, so you can see on the left there that we have proposed a grade level realignment, placing 5 and 6 at West, 7 and 8 at East. This aims to address challenges at the elementary schools while enhancing the student experience, and that's really what we're trying to do here. Initially driven by space, absolutely, it inspired the effective and efficient looking at what could we do best for our kids, and we've had lots of discussions and continue to do that. Tonight's an example of that. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Middle School West Principal, Mr. Ryan Creed, and he's going to talk you through the 5-6 option, and then Mr. DeAngelo will come up for the next slide.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Creed, and I'm the principal at Middle School West currently. Just wanted to take the opportunity to share a few topics with you that I think will be helpful and informative for you in regards to this topic of the building, the 5, 6, 7, 8 construction or realignment. Oh, man, it's hard to think of these words when you're up here, that we're talking about. First thing is facility impact and space. When I got to West, it's been 8 years now, and we were at about 578, 580. We're down to about 508 right now. There is space that we can be using more efficiently and more productively, and this is something of a driving force for this endeavor. So what we're looking at not only is the overall space that can be used, but there are opportunities when it comes to general education, special education, and special area subjects. Opportunity is the word I think about when it comes to this change. There are going to be, because of the different types of activities and co-curriculars and specials that we currently have at West, there are going to be opportunities and more opportunities for the elementary school students to experience at this, with this realignment idea and thought. So what are a couple of those things right now? The area of technology education, the area of family and consumer science. Those types of things are at the top of the list when it comes to things that students in this realignment in 5th and 6th grade would be able to experience more of that they currently don't do at this point in time. The other opportunities, and I'm just going to have to skip around for a second because it kind of goes with this, are the co-curriculars and the extracurriculars. We pride ourselves at, well, middle level overall with getting kids involved. And we have, we pride ourselves in the fact that it's very busy after school hours. And we have close to 15 or so after school activities, clubs, such as a disc golf club, such as a pickleball club, along with some of the academic sides of things with creative writing and homework club. Things of those sorts are things we want to keep, we create and we have going on a regular basis. And right now, our 6th grade students take full advantage of those because they're not playing sports yet. So, but they still want, they want to participate in things as much as possible. So bringing in 5th grade and creating even more opportunities for those kids and getting creative with some of those opportunities and bringing different kids together that have unique talents and abilities is something that can be a real positive. So that's more of the extracurricular offerings. And then the last thing I want to highlight here, and you see those things starred on this list, and we have something over there explaining that, is these items provide opportunities to create an elementary-like environment. So the other type of opportunity that I think of is the opportunity to look at how we organize teams, how we organize when it comes to resources, how we organize things when it comes to lunch and recess. These are things that we have opportunities to still create that type of elementary-like environment, as well as, you know, continue to nurture them into an environment by the time they are ready and, you know, to transition again, they are fully prepared. And it makes the transitions that much smoother when we can do so much with them when we have them, and then allow those transitions to be more seamless when they have to go to a 7-8 building and be prepared for that. So I think what, you know, we have here are things that West is such a supportive space. I mean, if you've been to West, there's a lot of, one, you'll notice the amount of space around West. There are so many things around West that we have as far as grounds that allow kids to do so many things. Outdoor classroom. We have a lot of outdoor classroom ideas that we want to continue to do. When it comes to kids getting outside, recess, things like that, we do some of that in 6, 7, 8 right now. And the opportunities that are there as far as space and recess, the options are endless. So it is a space that I think really aligns to the 5-6 way of thinking in so many different ways. So I'll hand it over to Dave here, and I'll speak a little bit more about the 7-8.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave DeAndrea. I am currently the principal at Middle School East. Prior to my current position, I was at South Elementary for 10 years, so this conversation has really resonated with me, considering the different transitions, kind of getting a front row seat to the different transitions our students have, and where's opportunities to improve that potentially. I'm actually going to start with the last bullet point on here, this idea about school culture and school community, this idea of we are one PV. This is a personal one for me. I'm a PV grad. I grew up in this community, graduated from the high school in 1999. I was one of the last cohorts to go through the old trap building that's now high-end condos, which is, I still can't wrap my head around. But when we came together at that time, we came together as 5th graders. And somehow we all fit in that small trap building. And we were able to move through our whole middle school experience together. And then I was also one of the last cohorts to move through the high school as an 8th grader. At that time, it was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in the high school. And I think the experience of having that cohort of students, all of us coming together as one much earlier, we haven't done that in 30 years as a district. And I think there's a real opportunity here to possibly start that at an earlier stage in this process. So a lot of what Mr. Creed mentioned, 7-8, there's a real opportunity to do some innovative things with a 5-6 building. So I won't repeat everything he said, but the same opportunities exist there. Facilities-wise, we can still maintain our current class sizes. We can maintain designated spaces for all of our core subject areas, our special area teachers, and our special ed spaces, which was a really critical piece for me in whatever proposal we came up with. I wanted to ensure that those spaces could still be utilized in the same way they are now, and they can be. So that was really encouraging for me. In 7-8, we can have a designated floor for 7th grade, a designated floor for 8th grade. And we're really maximizing the space that we have available. In terms of instruction and scheduling opportunities, I think we can look at our 7-8 schedule as well and look at how we're allocating time. This is a great opportunity to also look at the middle school schedule. We could keep it traditional. We have a very traditional middle school schedule at this point, but there's an opportunity here too to look at our time allocations for our core classes and how can we improve that? How can we increase instructional time with our kids to improve outcomes for kids? We can streamline student services, the opportunity for acceleration and enrichment. Our West students now have to be bused from West if they have acceleration opportunities as 8th graders for the high school. They would have the same opportunity as our East students do now to just walk to campus, basically, walk up to the high school. So it really, for 7-8, it's really about streamlining and making things really efficient for our students and for our families in this setting. The last bullet point there under instructional opportunities, for me, this is another important one. It can really support the increased likelihood for consistent, equitable experiences for our students. In the education world, this is known as teacher efficacy. So I talk about this a lot with my teachers, pushing towards collective teacher efficacy. And that means we have a shared belief that we can improve outcomes for kids. And more than that, it's not just about having the belief, this shared belief and common belief, it's that we have the ability to do that as well. And there's evidence to support that when teachers are collaborating and they're working in the same space, and we do that in a structured and really specific way, we can improve outcomes for students. So it gives us a huge opportunity to bring all of our 7th grade teachers together, all of our 8th grade teachers together in one building, and we provide a lot of clarity for what the instructional program can look like for our kids. And I said that would be the last point, but it's not. The other point that's come up throughout this conversation is maintaining opportunities for PIAA athletics and extracurriculars. At a minimum, we believe that we can maintain what's currently offered for our kids. We won't have to, stop students from participating any more than they already do. So we want to find ways to increase that likelihood. So I see it as a huge opportunity, and again, as a former community member growing up here, I see this as a real opportunity for us to bring our kids together in a different way.
Thank you, sir. You can see we put this was discussed last month, and we've done a lot of work at looking at this. The idea around the times, you can see the 7:50 to 2:30 for East and the high school, and then West as the intermediate grades would be 8:15 to 2:45 with those doors open in there. The idea with those time splits is to provide some flexibility for if you have a middle school student or an elementary school student and you want to drop off in both, giving time to get between both of those places while maintaining the academic hours and the hours in seat were required by the state. So that is that's not a final draft. This is a really well thought out draft of what we were thinking, but it's not completely finalized. Now, this is important. Next 2 slides, it's important that we show this to you and be clear. The recommendation that I referenced earlier is made. We are incorporating the expertise, and we said teaching and learning in this district is a real strength. We're incorporating our teachers at this level. If this is approved at the board level, you can see we really want to tap into the things that are listed there, our professional faculty and our staff, to really dig in on these pieces and on these on the schedules that are there. So these are hypotheticals that we put together, but we do have a plan to engage directly with teachers in working through this. You can see in there, currently a 5th grader, you can see how their day goes. All the 4 cores are in there. We have that win time block. That is what I need time, where we're helping students in their particular areas of growth that has traditionally been focused on ELA, and we are learning from South's example, actually, about how we can incorporate potentially math as well down the line, and that's been really great to learn from Mrs. O'Sullivan and Mr. DeAndrea in that transition. So So that win time, you can see there we have, and then the ELA block. We dedicate those minutes to math and ELA, as you can see. As a former history teacher, you know, I'd love to have social studies all day, but that's how we lay it out there. And then the hypothetical you can see there, again, IE is intervention and extension time. I believe that is how we phrase it in the middle schools. And you can see there, again, lunch and recess in there and the specials options. And again, not to belabor the point, the options for specials only get enhanced in those facilities for students. Here's a 6th grade current experience. Okay, and you can see one of the key things in the 6th grade currently is the beginning of the world language process and that survey process of the courses. And they have the advisory period in there. That advisory period you're going to see again. I'm not speaking, I just came from the high school last year. I'm not speaking on behalf of the high school in any way, shape, or form. They're looking at that advisory too. You see that more and more as research comes out on how best to meet students and their diverse needs. So that, if you're not familiar with that, I don't want to belabor it, but that period is a time where students can get the individualized help. Some of it's prescribed, some of it is more free, but they have that time throughout the day where there's not academic demands. It's engaging with teachers, it's working on work, it's working with partners, maybe working on a project, or maybe I'm involved in a specific activity at that time as well. Okay? So again, we recognize, and we wanted to produce some samples for everyone tonight, but we recognize bringing in the expertise of our professional faculty and staff to advise on this as well. And I will turn it over to Mr. Ganesh, our Director of Chief Information Officer.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Karthik Ganesh. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the district, and I also assist with the transportation as part of the transportation team. So what you see here is a map of our current 3rd and 4th graders who will potentially transition to the 5th and 6th grade center at West in 2 years if this plan moves forward. As you can clearly see that these 2 neighborhoods in Collegeville and Skipack are the farthest from West. So working closely with our busing company, STA, we designed routes for these farthest points. And one of the things, a few things that we took into consideration while designing these routes were usage of smaller number of stops, maybe 7 or 8 stops, and also smaller buses like a 29-seater rather than a 72-seater to reduce the ride times for the buses. So not only did we design these routes, we also drove these routes several times and captured the video footage of these routes to kind of determine what the ride times would be. And also we want to try to study the traffic patterns, like how long a red light or green light is going to be, how easy or difficult is it to turn from 130 to turn into 29. So all these patterns we studied from these video footages, and several of the task force members and board members did participate in these mock-up runs. So based on these mock-up runs, here's the data that we have. For the Collegeville route, which starts the farthest most point is the Collegeville crossing by Wawa on 29. So that's where the route started. We had a few stops in the Collegeville crossing neighborhood, crossed over to 29. And in Collegeville Glen, there's a few more stops. In total, there's about 7 or 8 stops. The bus driver from the bus stopped at each stop like 30 seconds to a minute, simulating picking up a student. And the bus driver did mention that depending on the number of students on the bus, whether they're ready to board the bus or not, the bus stop times might either be lesser or more. So picking up those students from those 7 or 8 stops, then we headed to West, and that ride time was approximately around 35 minutes. We repeated the same process in the afternoon, coming from West to the Collegeville neighborhoods. And the one thing that we noticed is traffic going up to West and coming back in the afternoon, the traffic was very minimal in the direction that we were heading. There was obviously traffic on the opposite direction, but the traffic on the direction that we were heading was very minimal. We did consider alternate routes like going up Ridge Pike, Township Line, Game Farm Road, and 29 again, but we thought the most efficient way to get to west from Collegeville is 29 all the way because of the traffic patterns. So that's what we determined. Again, so there is a video footage of one of the runs for the AM and PM at the bottom of the slide. It kind of gives you an idea. We did something similar to Skipack. The farthest point in Skipack is by the Buster Road in Harleysville. So we started from there, picked up a few more students on that neighborhood, went to the Biltmore Estates, then came on to 73, drove all the way through Skipack to 29 and to west. So we did notice that there was some traffic in 73 when we were driving through Skipack, but once we got through Skipack and 29, it was a clear sailing from there. So that ride time was less than 30 minutes in the morning. The same route in the afternoon, on an average, took about 8 to 10 minutes longer in the afternoon. That's what at least our study finds. Again, there's a video footage of those AM and PM footage as from one of the runs. Again, we did this several days, so we have listed some of the times there. So a few other transportation items to consider. Our threshold for the student transportation is about 45 minutes. So considering the time it took for a mock-up runs, even if we were to add another 10 more minutes to those mock-up run times, we are confident that we are able to transport students from the farthest end of those 2 points to west and still meet the threshold. That's what the data shows us. So, and again, going back to the 3-tier transportation system, the efficient part about the 3-tier transportation system is that it kind of provides buses from one tier are now available to all the tiers. But for the west transportation, we decided to, or at least we're planning on keeping a dedicated fleet, so we're not waiting on buses coming from high school, and this will reduce the ride times greatly. So coming back to the main campus, we are projecting that the Middle School East will, for the 7-8 center at East, will have 120 more students, 120 or more so students at the 7-8 center. And the high school, we are projecting that the enrollments is going to go down by about 75 students overall. So it's going to result in a net of additional 45 students in the campus, and for which we don't anticipate any great traffic pattern changes or the need to add an additional bus because of the occupancy rates in our current buses. And also in the recent past, high school used to have over 2,000 students, and the middle school used to have over 1,000 students. So our campus is used to having higher traffic, and we can follow the same protocols if needed. And as I said, we anticipate the 3-tier system, the 3 different start times and end times, to bring in a lot more efficiencies to our transportation because it's going to have reduced ride times, fewer stops because there are more buses available in each tier. For transporting students with medical needs, again, we go by the written doctor's note, whether it's going to be a specialized vehicle, a van, or trained professional riding the bus, and also with the ability to administer medication or whatnot. That's something that we go by the doctor's note. And also when an IEP or a 504 plan is developed, an individualized transportation plan is developed as well. That dictates what the district or the transportation company is going to do. So those are the transportation slides, transportation talking points, and I'm going to hand over to Michelle.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Michelle Evans. I'm the supervisor of special education for Evergreen Elementary and both middle schools. So we're going to talk about something that's especially important for special education is the number of transitions that students are being exposed to. So we've kind of put together how we will work on those transition concerns through communication, instruction, and social emotional supports. So here you'll see some communication strategies from the staff and some ideas that we in the special education department have, particularly for the students with the 504s and the IEPs, to make sure we're providing for any specialized needs that they would have when it comes to transition. So some of these are similar to what's happening now. Some will be enhancements that we're considering if we're adding in a transition. So we have the transition day in the spring. This happens now. Sending teachers meet with receiving teachers, including related service providers, anybody who would make sense to have at that meeting, because these are individualized meetings, these IEP meetings. There's a transition checklist that is a physical piece of paper that you sit there and go through. Does this student have this need? Yes or no? How are we going to address it at the next meeting, or at the next building? I'm sorry. Make sure that that checklist goes to the next team. We'll attend transition meetings, and then the school counselor transition meetings happen now between the counselors, between the buildings, and that would be something to continue. Administration, so the special education supervisors at each building and building administration would make sure to do these things to guarantee that we're taking those students with the IEPs and making sure that that is transitioning to the next building as it should. I'll let you read through there. Cross-level administration meetings and discussions, I think, are important, and then we will be extra diligent with supervision and training of our staff. This would cause some transitions of staff, likely, so we want to make sure that our staff is getting trained to be knowledgeable of everything they need if they are changing a level. So there's an example. I suppose this slideshow will get shared out, that they would be able to click on. I'm not sure if I can click on that here. I don't know how to do that. Thank you. This is just an example of a sample, a sample checklist. So it's just an example that it says, occupational therapy, is that a strength or a need? Speech and language, strength or a need? And that would go through with the parents, the teachers, the receiving team, the sending team, to make sure that we have that all covered. So that's an idea that we have to make a more standard part of our transition process. When it comes to embedded instruction, some of our students will need to be taught some of these skills that are important in transition. So what skills those are really depend on the student, but these are some examples of skills that students may need. Self-regulation, resilience, flexible thinking, so preparing them prior to the switch to a new building, thinking about that instruction the student might need. Overall processes and skills such as visiting the building, orientation, practicing locks if they're going to use a locker. What will lunchtime look like in a 5-6 building? What will lunchtime look like in the 7-8 building? And then formalizing some of those individual supports through the IEP transition planning. So if we as a team decide this student might need a couple extra tours, they might need a facilitated tour, we can schedule that as part of our transition meeting the year before. And then for transition, social emotional needs, these are good for all students, but I'm speaking on behalf of special education, but these are opportunities that can be for all students. So we'll have those springtime visits to the receiving buildings. There's options to even do some virtual for certain students that might meet next year's case manager, maybe virtually going back and forth. Planned events over the summer. We have lots of ideas for different events over the summer. There's a few listed here. And then while there are usually orientation nights, we could have specific to special education as well and just have all the players there that might be able to answer your questions for special education specifically. Extracurricular fairs, and then, like I said, tours with various levels of support. So I know everybody's interested in opening the buildings a little more if we're going to be having additional transitions. So varied levels of support on those tours. So if, like we said, you need a sensory-friendly tour, we can set that up. All right, we're going to move over to all students. Back to Mr. DeAndrea. Nope.
So Mr. Creedon and I are going to talk about transitions that Really, a lot of it is summarizing what Mrs. Evans just shared. But there are some activities that are specific to what West does and some activities that are specific to what East does. And all of them, kind of a unifying thread for all of them is that social emotional need of our students, developing those social emotional connections that when they're transitioning to a new building, we want to start that process as soon as possible. So I'll let Mr. Creed talk about West.
All right, thank you. Transitions are something we already take very seriously. Coming from 5th to 6th grade and coming to a bigger building in middle school is very anxiety ridden already for so many students. So there's so much we're already prepared for and equipped for when it comes to transitioning. As Michelle stated just recently, when it comes to transition, special education is something we transition earlier and do primarily first in the process because it's so important. Getting that communication established in the spring is so important. So you'll see a couple of those bullet points in April and May where we already are establishing that communication with case managers at the elementary level, having those individual conversations, talking about needs, talking about how we're going to accommodate needs at the next level. Things that are so important. A lot of this we were spelling out. We know that if we're going to be doing this for the first time in 26, 27, we're looking at transitioning both grades to the building and 2 grades to the building, and we're already thinking about that. So some of these activities that we're thinking about doing, we're going to need a lot of parent help if we're going to bring all of them together all at once. But eventually, we'll get to a place where this can provide I love when transitions like this and orientations can provide leadership opportunities for the older students to welcome the younger students. So that opportunities are going to be available for 6th graders to welcome the 5th graders in and to orient them. We have student ambassadors right now at West, and they're 8th graders that already do. They pretty much lead our orientation when it comes to 6th graders coming in. So I can see the same opportunities happening for 6th graders in times to come. So there's things we have established that happened the year before when it comes to a parent night at the beginning of June that we have to get parents just informed about what things could be looking like the following year. And then we want to have some things that are more enjoyable and fun to get the kids excited about coming, especially that year before, so the anxiety doesn't just continue to build up over the summertime, but it creates more of a calming presence when we have events like something like the West Wind-Up in June before school. And then in August, we are already digging in before school begins, weeks before school, a couple weeks before school begins, a week before school begins with orientations, tours. I also know we do tours as well in May for students coming up. So you not only have a tour in May, you not only have a tour in August, so there's opportunities to see the building a couple of times. But if there are we know the anxiety is still there for some, so there's still opportunities to have more individual tours come August, and allowing that seamless transition to happen for even those that are thinking about it a little bit more. So all that said, we do a lot and try to make sure that we are supporting all of our students, no matter the need. So I'll have Dave speak a little bit about the 7-8.
And the last important point for our current 3rd and 4th graders, something that came up in our last community meeting, was this idea of those leadership opportunities for the 5th graders that are transitioning. The 4th graders might lose that opportunity. So we would shift those leadership opportunities. So 2 grades would be kind of getting them at the same time. 4th grade would have safety patrol opportunities. 4th grade celebration would be a thing that happens. So for each grade that would be transitioning in those years, there's similar opportunities that we would plan for them. For the 7-8 transition, in the first year, our real focus is bringing the 7th grade cohorts together. There'd be a cohort coming over from the West building, and then there would be another cohort that was already at East for the start of that year. So in June, we would want to have some kind of 7th grade kickoff where we could bring those 2 cohorts of students together and continue to build that unification throughout the summer. Other than that, our transition services and our transition planning doesn't change much. It's really a 5-month process starting in the spring. And a lot of it is with our internal teams, making sure that we know who our students are, the students that before they even get to our building, we know who they are. And we have supports in place, whether they're regular ed, whether they're special ed, whatever their needs might be. So that process in my mind doesn't change a whole lot. But in those transition years, making the transition, we would need to think really carefully about the cohorts that are moving in single year transitions. And the last point too, these conversations are ongoing and new ideas will emerge the more we talk about them. And I think I'm passing it off to Dr. Sachs.
Good evening. My name's Amy Sachs. I've been in the district for 25 years now. I've been at our middle level. I was an elementary teacher. I was a principal at the middle level, principal at an elementary level, now a principal administrator up at the high school. So I've seen the K-12 experience similar to Mr. Marsh over here, and truly passionate about how we support our students, and really have helped work with our curriculum instruction team, our leaderships team here throughout the district on what's best practice for our students, what's good for our kids, and really looking to support them throughout whatever transition is happening in their worlds, right? So our conversations, when we take a look at our elementary students, there's opportunity for us here. There are a lot of benefits. We have increased space, right? It will open things up for us. We'll have one less grade level there at the building. We will actually still be able to maintain that individualized support, the smaller class sizes. We'll gain time for I&E time. We'll gain time for subject area expansion. Okay, so there's really an opportunity to get those students, like we all know, at their earliest ages and more focused at that level. So that is very appealing to us. Our service providers right now, the flexibility to accommodate those students, get them their own spaces, okay? That is something that is not happening right now. It does propose a lot of challenges for us. We have buildings right now, I'll speak to Skip back quickly. They already have services on carts, okay? We have students who do not necessarily have a certain space where they get their supports all the time. Schwanksville also is running into that. And both of those buildings have potential for additional folks to be on carts and not have a home. That's not great for our students. It is very comforting to them when they have a room to go into with the adult that they're working with and feel as if that they can receive that instruction in a private area that's special for them. It's very difficult when you have curriculum areas moving around a building or a small group that you really want to have attention with in a nice spot where you can sit down and it's quiet and not in a hallway. That's not ideal for us. Okay, we have that going on right now and potential for more of that to occur once our buildings begin to and continue to grow. I think it's a great opportunity for us, the leadership opportunities for our 4th graders. We did have K-4 buildings here. I was a 4th grader at a K-4 building. It was the same concept as what our 5th graders have. Yes, will there be a transition? Sure. Will we support that? We always do. We've had transitions in our district in recent years. We've always worked with our families to try to make that as smooth as possible, to help you, to help your students. Like we said, giving those tours, making it personal for you, having that opportunity to have conversations and discussions. And we've had many folks go through that throughout the years, and we look to listen and hear and work with you. And the other idea right here, a benefit, is reduce social and behavioral gaps. Again, bringing those kids, I'm going to reiterate Mr. DeAndrea, coming together sooner, that we're all one team, that we're here together. We do that sooner. We did that in 5th grade back in the day at the old middle level. And we were all Vikings. We weren't in these different areas. We came together sooner, and it really does essentialize our supports, our teaching, our engagement with one another, our consistency, and it's really important for us to do that for our students. So I just want to make sure that I've shared some of that with you, that you realize that we are really taking this seriously. We've been shifting recently in our scheduling, looking at finding times, looking at finding the right formula or recipe for our students to make sure that they have the most success possible. And part of that conversation through MTSS, those multi-tiered systems of support, taking a look at our schedules, looking to expand that up into our high school, and we've to expand it into having conversations about Viking Zone, that advisory period. Again, looking at those transitions in and supporting kids more purposefully, specifically according to those individual needs. So it is something that we really do take pride in here at PV. It really is a family experience. We realize that it's personal, and we really want to make sure that we help guide you in the process.
We're getting to the end, everybody. Get to questions here in a moment. So next steps, really appreciate the presentation, everybody's attention tonight. So you can see next steps up there. So there's going to be, this will be posted on the web. Those links will be opened up for everybody. And then on Monday night, jump to the bottom there, Dr. Russell and the team will be there to present to the board and request that be acted on sometime this spring. I want to say that the middle bullet points is really Dr. Russell and us as a team, but really under the leadership of Dr. Russell, she has been talking to home and school. She's been talking to the faculty and staff. She has been talking in these forums, and those are going to continue. We definitely want to continue to hear. We're getting to questions here in a moment. But that is really how we're going to keep moving forward with this as next steps. So with that in mind, we thank you so very much. We have some high school students here with us, thinking more, I'm going to date myself here, thinking more Phil Donahue, less Jerry Springer. But we do have a microphone coming around here. If you have any questions or concerns, you could definitely do that. We have a hand up in the front. I am not a bingo caller, so I'm not going to keep pointing them out. And if we all can help answer.
Hi, thank you. Okay, I'll stand. One question and one suggestion. The first question is, I was unable to attend the special education sessions earlier in the month. I believe there were 2. So I was looking to hopefully get tonight clarification over the necessity for those sessions. It looks like the only material change regarding special education is that there will now be 2 transitions that the students will occur before high school instead of 1, right? They're going from 5th to middle so they have 2, and it's more disruptive, and that was the concern. Unless there were other topics discussed, because I couldn't find anything on the website about the minutes or the notes from those 2 sessions.
No, if I'm understanding correctly, and I didn't run those sessions, but
Yeah.
I'm looking over at special ed. I think that there will absolutely be for all students those 2 transitions, right?
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
don't
oh,
think
yeah,
there
yeah,
was anything else.
But sensitivity
from
to
the-
those sensitivity for those students.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wasn't sure if there were any other topics addressed in those 2 sessions, because I didn't see minutes or slides or anything posted, or not that I could find. I looked for it.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to double check. We have that presentation that we can share out,
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
and that way you can take a look at those slides, and then please send us any questions you have that are in particular to special education, because a lot of those sessions were individualized to the people that were asking the
Okay.
questions.
No, that's fine. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
The recommendation is if one of the primary arterials that the kids with the extended travel are going to have to go through is going through the intersection of Bridge and 29, maybe this is an opportunity for the community, the school board actually, to lobby the township to maybe do something about that horrible, horrible intersection. Just a suggestion. I mean, you'll have the political weight of the community behind you, so maybe take use of it.
And not to, I mean, agreed upon. I can't speak for the board in any way, shape, or form, but I will say this: on those bus rides that we went on early in the morning, I was on one of those rides, a couple of those rides, and to just everybody knows, like the bus driver says, and that is the best route. They timed it out. They did amazing work there. But it is, as we're pulling up, the bus driver says, "This is the worst intersection in the district," and everybody's like, "Yes, it is." So we hear you, but that's way beyond me to respond to that. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Excellent.
Thanks, hi. One of my concerns is I'm in one of the furthest areas from West. So I have friends whose children currently are in the furthest area from Skipback, and they're going to West, and I am told on a regular basis that their ride is 45 to 60 minutes, depending on the day. So I'm hearing and seeing what you're saying, and I regularly drive over there because my daughter plays soccer there. If I don't leave 30 minutes before her game, I'm late. I'm not making stops. It's Sunday morning, there's no traffic. So I find it very skeptical what is being said. And I'm very concerned about that. One of your pillars is what children's wellness. Having children on a bus that young for that long every day is not going to be beneficial to their wellness. Should I drop the mic or?
Well, don't break it. They're not cheap. But no, I hear that, and I'll just say this to you. I was on several of those rides. We had multiple timers going. That data is what came from those rides. I'm not disputing your experience, okay? I will say this to the wellness of students, and this is me speaking as a building principal. I see the benefits that we can have for a 5-6 building, having led that building at West in that setting with those facilities for those kids. I see that benefit, in my opinion, outweighing that cost, and I think we can work through that. No, correct, I'm not. Correct, I'm not.
You're not stuck in that spot. It's easy for us all to say that. I'm sorry, but I'm just.
No, I appreciate that. I'm not disputing it. I'm sorry, ma'am? No, I do not. I know, I no,
How do you have a carnival planned out 2 years in advance to make everybody happy? I don't need a microphone.
no, yeah, the presentation is Monday. There's. So let me respond for a moment. The only decision that has been made is that the recommendation is made for that grade alignment. That recommendation is on the board's desk. Questions like this are the things that get to the heart of it, that we want to have those conversations about. So that's the clear line of demarcation of what's been decided and what's not been decided, okay?
We good? Okay. Hey, good evening, everyone. So my name is Kevin Vargo. I actually don't want to get into the solution conversation too much because I think it's a little premature, to be honest. I'm more concerned about the data leading to the problem. Like we're using, thanks. But seriously, I feel like we're being hooked in with a space and a capacity problem, but nothing really has been shared. And so I looked at the original data and I reached out to the administration. And first and foremost, thank you for the response, transparency, quick turnaround. It was very easy communication. And I asked a simple question: what are our capacity numbers? And I was told we don't have current capacity numbers for the schools. We're in a process right now getting that with Montgomery County Commission. And so I found that very odd because we're kind of making very emotional statements that we're at capacity or over capacity, but we don't have capacity numbers. And then we talked about space. And so after I made that comment back, the reverse comment was, well, next year, 3 of our 4 elementary schools could be out of space. And I agree with that, but this solution doesn't solve that problem. This is multiple years out, right? So if that's truly a problem statement, we should have conversations about what we're doing next year to solve those elementary solutions. So those are 2 areas on the problem statement that I'm a little concerned about, but then also on the solution side, it would be really nice, and I think it'd be improved transparency to kind of see the deltas between what we currently have and these options. So when this is pitched, it's all roses and sunshine, right? But how different is it than what our current kids are seeing, right? And that would help us as a community really gauge, especially my kids are in elementary school. I don't know the activities at middle school and high school, so it's really hard for me to actually gauge, are these that much better than the current situation? Are they huge deltas? Are they actually incremental deltas? And actually comparing the 2. So my concern right now is that essentially I see a hand-waving problem statement with little data, but like really, really firm solutions. And to me, that just screams bias or some other reason that's driving it. And so overall, and I'm not disagreeing, I'm neutral to the solutions, right? If the problem statement actually is leading to this solution, that's great, but I'm not following that thought process right now. And then one question just from today, there's a lot of research, psychological research, that we should actually switch high school and elementary start times, but what's here is actually opposite. That was from American Psychological Association recently, and a lot of schools have switched to start high school later, so I'm just curious to comment on why we switched that.
I just want to help Mr. Marsh out. Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Let me go back, and we did have some conversation over email, and I appreciate you reaching out and really your approach and openness to thinking. Just to clarify, there is a report that's available through board docs. We had a planning commission and an architectural study, both 2 separate ones done back in the 16-17 school year. And at that time, for example, the estimated capacity for East was over 1,000 students, and the estimated capacity for Skipback was close to 800. Don't quote me on the numbers, but they're in there. And at one point, as a principal at Skipback Elementary, back in 2005, we had 850 students in that building. Today, it would be very difficult to host that number of students because the ways in which we operate are very different. We have district-wide special education classrooms that we didn't have before. With those classes come lots of resources. So the ways in which we operate really don't align to those capacity numbers any longer. And so we're updating that study. But right now, 3 principals will share with you, based on class size recommendations, policy 126, and our efforts to maintain smaller class sizes and host our special education students in their schools of residence to the best of our ability. We have classes at Skipback that host Schwanksville Skipback students, classes at South that host South Evergreen students. Those things together have stressed the space availability in our buildings. So capacity numbers from 16-17 do not apply anymore. That's the explanation that I was trying to express over email, because our approaches to operating and the services we deliver today look different from back then.
Sure, I appreciate the feedback, but I guess the key question is, what if that's the problem we're trying to solve? That's not what we're hearing. We're hearing about all these other things that are, like, it's hard for us to actually gauge why we're talking about those. I understand they're because we put a very firm
It certainly feels drastic, and I'm hearing that loud and clear from families in South, because those of you that reside in the South community are some of the farthest families from Middle School West. So again, I think to emphasize the challenge is being able to deliver programming and services in the ways that we believe serve students the best. And right now, what was the problem statement that you're referencing? Right, and that broadened to include we can't deliver services in the ways that we would like. So they are connected. They are not two separate things. They are connected. And if you look at our achievement, 5th grade through 8th, there's been downward trends. So as we analyze that, we think about what are the possibilities and opportunities for our students if we would reinvent or rethink our ability to deliver service. And we have a resource at West and East that are less tapped. They have potential to host more students. We believe we can capitalize on that. And some of the other point that I sometimes mention, but I don't know that we all realize, 70% of the individuals in our community don't have children in our schools. 70%. They pay taxes. So when we have a building out there at West with a lot of untapped capacity and elementary schools that are feeling stressed so that we can't operate in the ways that we believe is best, we prompt ourselves to reflect and think about what's possible and what might actually serve students better. It is not one single challenge. Yes, the space constraints prompted our consideration. What are we going to do? Because we can't operate in the ways that we believe is right for kids or best for kids. How do we get there? This is the recommendation that we arrived at and presented to our board. Yes.
Just in general, in this session, can we do an active listening type of thing? Because I think the point is for the community to provide comment, right?
I'll just say, if you don't have the mic, nobody can hear you outside. So
Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, if there's not getting a long-winded response to everything, we're not going to hear from everyone.
I was wondering, and this makes me nervous. I don't know if I could do it. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I saw, first of all, I'm not from here. I moved here in 2019, so my kids have been in school since kindergarten and stuff. I always thought it was weird that they split 2 schools. Like, that never made sense to me. So if I was a skip back or I guess Schwenksville, I would be pushing. Sorry, I would be pushing for it because it doesn't make sense at all. That being said, you mentioned, there was a slide that said they looked at the idea of putting, I guess, maybe South and Evergreen at one and the other 2 at the other. And it said, oh, it didn't work. But can we get the data on that? Because I would be totally about that. Totally about it. It makes sense because then you're not splitting schools up. People are together. And my biggest problem really is this bus ride. I'm going to be honest. I think it's too much. We've already said it. I don't need to reiterate it again. But I want to know numbers-wise, like, I guess, or data-wise, this is Kevin's area, but why is it so far off that we're going to do this thing that's going to make a lot of parents, a lot of kids, a lot of people really unhappy, or is it close enough that maybe it's meeting in the middle? And, oh my gosh, there was something else. I'm sure I'll think of it. Never mind. Thank you.
First, I'd like to start by saying we are one PV already, okay? We don't need to be in one school to all feel part of this community. And so that needs to go away, the whole we're not one PV. That's why we're here. The start of the presentation said this conversation was driven by space. If this was driven by space, then why aren't we thinking about putting temporary space, whatever those things are, at each of the 3 elementary schools that need it. 3 elementary schools need it for potentially a short period of time. So why isn't that an actual consideration being taken under like full consideration? What you said I had written down. This is a drastic measure for a space constraint. This is not how we're gonna do it best. A month ago at this community meeting, it was the whole East versus West. Oh, we need to get rid of that. So I see it's changed. We could put 2 buildings together potentially. There has to be other solutions where we're not putting kids on a bus. I agree, those bus numbers, that's 30 seconds. I stand at the bus every day. It's not 30 seconds. So I would advise you to do it with, like, what? Yeah. Do you want children to try it with? Do you want adults to be at the, trying to get their backpacks on and their hoods off and their umbrellas down? Like, that's not real life. The 3 transitions in 4 years essentially means every other year the kids are transitioning. Every other year. So that's enormous for special education. It is for an average student as well, every other year. There is research that shows that students in smaller community-based learning environments thrive academically and socially when they're with people that they can form relationships with over periods of time in smaller settings. We're talking about doubling the number of students per grade, which means that they become a number. This is what Springford has. This is why we don't live there, because we don't want our kids in these giant buildings with hundreds and hundreds of kids. My kids at East, everyone knows them. They have great relationships with people there. You take them out every other year. It's so hard to build a relationship. By the time they get acclimated, they're leaving to the next building. And for athletics, at East, we already have gym space and field space problems just for the ones at East. So if we're thinking that we're still gonna have 2 teams for every grade, that literally won't be possible in the space constraints that we have today. So I would like to know the actual date that this is going for board approval. I would like to know that, please.
Hi, Brad from, I guess I don't need to announce myself. So I'm also a data person. I can't help myself. It's what I do. So I got data from the meeting on 130 and also on 224. And again, and I also pulled it from the PVSD directory. So if I get these numbers wrong, please correct me. Schwenksville has 3 5th grade classes. Sound about right? Okay. Skipback has 4. South has 3. Evergreen's, we're good here, right? So, yes. Oh, I had it as 3, so I'll change that to 4. This was couched as a space problem. If we're only moving the 5th grades, I don't see this fixing the space problem. Because the reasons that we're running out of space is not grade classrooms, right? It's not the grades that are the issue. It's the extra things that we're doing for our students, which are great. On the meeting on 224, there was a recommendation for an occupational therapist, and a counselor or a social worker. Those people are going to need spaces also. If Schwenksville, for example, has to add another kindergarten space, as well as the occupational therapist and counselor or social worker, they're back down to 0 space. And we're here in a year having the same discussion. And the same goes for the rest of the schools. This is a disruptive change that we're talking about. I don't disagree with it. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it will be a disruptive change. I think that there may be other options that haven't been put forth that may give the space requirements that are needed. And I'm wondering why they weren't talked about when we're looking at coming back in a year and not having any space in these schools and potentially being in the same spot we are very quickly after having such a disruptive change to the entire community.
Thank you. Oh, the microphone makes me nervous too. Hi, my name is Stephanie Carey. I have 2 children in the school district now. I will eventually have 4. I live in Collegeville, in the furthest point from the school district, and I have many issues with this, but I would like to touch on children with medical issues and the bus ride and the proposed van, the small van. My 4-year-old, who will be a kindergartner at South next year, has type 1 diabetes. The thought of her being singled out, separated, put on a small bus for a disease that she can't control, and likely a longer bus, even because they'll be picking up I don't know how many children have disabilities, but they'll be picking up just the children with disabilities, signaling her out from her peers, putting a nurse, first of all, the nurse is probably a waste of resources. She needs a shorter bus ride in case she goes low or needs insulin. She doesn't need to be singled out and put on a small bus made to feel different than her peers, separated from her sisters, who, if this proposal wouldn't happen, she would have siblings on the bus with her. It just feels unfair, wrong, and we're doing this for the benefit of the children. We have to think about the children with disabilities too, and the small van and the separation is sickening to me. But also just the bus ride in general. Would like clarification. On the board, it said something about 30 minutes for each bus ride, but yet they're boarding the bus an hour before school starts. Why? If they're only going to be on the bus for 30 minutes, why are they getting on the bus at 7:20 for an 8:15 start time? It's almost, that is what it said, right? Right, so it's an hour later for the 5th graders. So, yes, can you just give a little clarification on that? Thank you. I could be wrong, numbers are my thing. Okay,
so let me start off with our current bus system and the 3-tier proposed bus system that will happen if this proposal goes through. Our current bus system is a 2-tier system, meaning that the buses come to the high school, middle school first, and then they go to the elementaries to pick up students, right? The proposed 3-tier bus system will have 3 tiers, three different buses. So that will greatly reduce the ride times, the number of bus stops, and hence we're able to cut down the ride times there. And going back to your question about vans, right? So the farthest points, right? Those farthest points in Collegeville and Skippack, that entire, we are at this point planning to have about 2 to 3 29-seaters to those areas. So it's not just to your child, but everybody living in that, it'll still be an inclusive bus ride. Everybody living in that neighborhood would still ride the same bus, a 29-seater rather than a 72-seater with 7 or 8 stops. So that's what our proposed plan is, not a specific, unless until the IEP or a 504 plan says this child needs a van or a specialized medical person.
But then so then she's on a bus ride that's too long and not safe. It's not good for any of them. These children are cooped up inside on a bus with no supervision, no ability to get to I have daughters a competitive gymnast or on a dance team. You know, those practices start after school. What is going to happen to their life outside of school? They're going to spend 2 hours sitting on a bus every day.
We're estimating that the bus ride,
but that's with 30 seconds with the kids getting on, right?
That is
Yes.
Have you done this with kids on a bus? That's the question.
Yes.
So we did, again, let's try unpacking one at a time. So we did drive during the same bus time or the traffic pattern times, like the 7:30 start. We drove that on multiple days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's right, but the other buses. That is correct. So.
That is correct. Zing.
And you didn't have kids on the bus. Kids that are misbehaving. Kids that are doing whatever. Like, there was no children. There was no...
I got stuck behind the garbage truck one time when I was taking my kids to Sylvia's. It was torture.
Right.
Can we account for that? I mean, that was a really, really hard time.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
If you want to help them in their education, then figure something else out. Keeping them cooped up on a bus. Do you have children?
Yes, I do.
Let me tell you, little kids spaz out when they're like confined. Like literally, because they don't like that feeling. They don't, I mean, the buses in the summer are hot. They're not allowed to eat or drink on the bus. So for 40 minutes, these kids are dripping in sweat when they come off. No drinks, no
How about
beverages,
potty
nothing.
breaks?
What if they run out of water or something when they're leaving? Do you have a case of water to hydrate them? Like, you're not thinking of all this stuff that's crucial.
My kid gets cards.
You know, the one that we had out of nowhere, we had ice the other day. In the middle of the day, there was no snow in the forecast. Now, what happens if something like that happens? Because weathermen are always wrong, and our kids are stuck somewhere. How are we supposed to get to our children safely? You're gonna have parents ransacking? What about last year at South or in the schools when it was on lockdown because somebody was gonna blow up Target? I ought to drive 40-something minutes with every other parent frantic about their child, trying to save my child. Are you gonna save my child? No. You're not even gonna be there. You have to take all of this into consideration. You're being selfish. There is so much money that we all pay taxes for. Trust us, we all pay them. We have a very wealthy community that we live in. People have money that we utilize to pay to taxes. We live in a fantastic school district. That's why we chose to live here. You need to utilize the resources and the funding to give our children a better education, not by jamming them up on a school bus for 2 hours a day. I used to travel to New York every single day for work, an hour and 30 minutes. It was living hell, and I was an adult getting a paycheck for that. This is not fair to our children at all.
If I may clarify just one point about the 30 seconds to a minute timeline, that is information that was given to us by a transportation company. That's what they estimate based on. That's what they estimate based on the number of stops. On average, they stop about 30 seconds to a minute per stop. That's information that.
No, that's impossible. I will drive my child, and I will
Okay, now.
take my entire trip during rush hour to West, kick my kid out of the car every second, and just goodbye, fling that pack out the window, turn around and come home, and I will send it to your personal email, full data. I will put you on my dashboard like a Uber driver. This is ridiculous. This is why I don't come.
You got the mic, go. Go ahead.
Well, I have multiple concerns. Transportation is just the beginning. I have 2 children at South, and transportation is quite tricky. One does have specialized transportation, and does he need it? I don't think necessarily, but truthfully, they are the last to get picked up to go to school and the first to get dropped off. So he should be able to ride the bus with his big brother. But his big brother said, I think the specialized transportation would be best for him because even in that short little 10-minute commute, he doesn't think he could be brave enough to help his little brother when others are unkind. Even sitting, he said, I said, what about in the front seat, buddy, by the bus driver? Not even then, because things happen. And when you give kids an extended period of time, things happen. They're kids. And maybe they're malicious, maybe they're not, but my child, they get picked up almost at the exact same time. But he doesn't even think that he could help his little brother. And he said medically, too. What if something happened in that 5 minutes? He can't help him. There's so much wrong with it. And you were talking about different driver changes. That's a big deal too for on the special needs buses as well, the specialized transportation. There are different bus drivers, and now when it's a 34-minute, 37-minute drive with a brand new driver that does not understand my child's needs, you're asking for a lot of very potentially life-threatening things happening. That's just speaking from my child alone, who has a very medically complex, rare disease. And the transportation hours of going to school, for someone with special needs too, you're giving them a very long period of time for setting them up for failure, really. So much can happen with anxiety. You said that lots of kids have anxiety. I can't even talk about that for the general population with the transitions, but it just feels really bad. And then for 35 minutes on the way home and losing that time, not only for his big brother who does other activities, it's for him. He has to also have time to acclimate when he gets home. So now you're taking away time that he needs to acclimate. And yeah, we got to go right back out that door to do all the other specialized therapies that he needs so that he can be living his life to his fullest abilities. I also have big concerns about large numbers that are going to happen when they transition to 5-6 and the 7-8. I would like to know what the class sizes are going to look like for those when they transition to 5-6 and 7-8. Are they going to be able to stay at smaller numbers? And for my child who has an extensive IEP, it's quite, I brought this up before at the last meeting for the special education meeting, but at his current school, I believe they said somewhere around 50 students with IEPs. How many students are now going to be at a 5-6 building with IEPs? I believe the number was somewhere around 200 students. They can't even get it right with only 50 students with IEPs. My child lost a third of his year because they didn't read his IEP. It's black and white. It's a legal documentation. So now you're going to be sending him to a 5-6 building with triple the number of kids. You're telling me you're really going to know him inside and out? Or my other son who does not have an IEP, you're going to tell me when the numbers triple, they're going to know his name and he's going to have that specialized education? I have a lot more concerns and I will send them in an email, but I could go, honestly, I could go on.
I'm good now. You got it already? Yep.
Hello, I have two students in the district, a current 3rd grader and a current 6th grader at Middle School East and South. And I guess in general, if space was this has been presented as a space issue. And from the beginning, I guess I'm still frustrated at the fact that even full day kindergarten was presented just a year ago, and that the administration can do the due diligence, and here we are a year later having this discussion, which is why I think when you present it as a space concern or space issue, and you're basically reinventing like the whole district for space concern, it's kind of concerning. It's a little bit hard to, I don't know what I'm trying to say here right now. But anyway, that's number one. And number two is you say that this is ongoing conversations, but today alone we were only presented with option number one, with the option that the administration has recommended. You haven't provided the data behind why you think that this is academically going to improve our kids' education, and you said that grades 5 through 8 have had a downward trend, but those are also the COVID years. Right. And then you haven't even presented options 2, 3, and 4 tonight. I think at the beginning of tonight's meeting, you said option number 3, which was 5 through 8 at East and at West, that was decided that it wasn't beneficial, but there was no data as to why it wasn't beneficial tonight. There was no transparency behind that. And also just, I don't know, what else? My 3rd grader didn't go to school today because yesterday she found out that this meeting was happening. She cried for 2 hours last night. She didn't eat dinner. She was so sad. She is a bright student. She loves school. She loves her teachers. She was so sad about it. She didn't want to be on the bus for that long. She was so sad that she's not going to see her special education teachers that she has a very special bond with for one less year. My 8th grader, my current 6th grader, she has anxiety issues. Yeah, she's not going to be changing any buildings, but she's very anxious about, it's 1 year earlier that we're going to be all together. She already has anxiety issues. And I just think it's like a lot of stones being thrown into a pond and making waves when there's other solutions that haven't even been presented. I would like to see, you say that all these conversations are happening. I would kind of like to see a survey sent to teachers, the staff, the parents, because a lot of parents actually don't know about this. A lot of parents, they just like delete their emails. There's so many emails. There was a survey to us about the academic calendar, but you can't send out a survey about this. I think it's important to get everybody's input, not just at meetings because some people can't come because of work, for whatever reasons they can't come. I would like to see a survey sent out to the whole district. That's it.
Thank you. Sorry, the slide's been up too long. I'm starting to have questions. It looks like on 210, what should be a 28-minute ride, you did all the pickups in 2 minutes. So I'm wondering if that 30 minutes, did that start after the last pickup or at the very beginning of the ride?
At the very first stop. On an average, we've been getting 30, 35 minutes, depending on the traffic. That's even with the school bus. 210. You're talking about
the top one?
Yeah, the top one, yeah. February 10th,
Yeah.
yeah. So that is 30 minutes from the first pickup. There's about 7 stops between Collegeville Crossing and Collegeville Glen. And again, we tried different routes. We tried going out to Clayhore and then taking 113 and then making a left on to 29. That's one of the routes we tried. So that could be the difference that you're seeing in timings. And another route was just going 29 all the way, not going to Clayhore. So we tried different routes that could be the difference in timings you're seeing. But again, based on those 7 or 8 stops, again, stopping only for 30 seconds to a minute. So that's the right times that we are getting, because the times that we've been going on around 7:20, 7:30, the traffic is on the opposite side, and there was literally no traffic or very minimal traffic on the way that we are heading to west.
So based on the 3-tiered bus routing, do you expect to have 7 or 8 stops per bus?
So for the farthest, again, if I go back to the previous slide.
I ask because we're down kind of in that group.
So if you go back to this slide here, so for the families that are living the farthest, right, for the ones in Collegeville Crossing or the ones in Skip-Pack, our plan is to have buses that have minimal stops, like a 29-seater, which will even at the full capacity will only allow like 20 students. So that'll be like 7 stops, two students per stop or something like that. 2 or 3. Okay, so on a 29-seater, we would not have more than 20 students in the bus. So that's picking up 20 students. If there are 11 students in a stop, that's like 2, 3, I don't know how long it will take for the student to get onto that. That'll pretty much fill up the bus, half fill up the bus. That'll be only 2 or 3 stops then. Once the bus gets to about 20 students on a 29-seater or even less, and that bus is heading to
sorry, a 29-seater, that's the full-size bus?
No, a 72-seater is a full-size bus.
Okay, so it's a half.
Yes, yeah. And again, we don't fill that bus. On a 29-seater, we only fill to like maybe 65 or 70% capacity. Some of them are 2-seaters, some of them are 1 single-seater. So depending on the number of students, at the max, we'd probably go to 20 students. So there's 10 or 11 students in one bus stop. That'll be only 2 or 3 stops. The bus is already at 20 students then, and there's only 2 stops, and then it's heading to west.
And we have enough of the smaller buses to handle that?
That is, we have 2 years. That is something that we will work with our transportation company to make sure that there's enough of those smaller buses available. They're a nationwide company. So even if there is not one in this depot, we have the ability to ask them to bring more 29-seaters to this depot.
just have a few things. That's okay. Right now, we already have a bus shortage of drivers, so I'm confused how we're going to add extra bus routes when we don't even have enough drivers to begin with. And you're kind of counting on the transportation company of STA to be the contracted, providers to then have enough drivers, which I don't think is that realistic, to be honest.
I want to start with, sorry, go ahead.
I have a few things, so I'm just going to roll through them if you don't mind. You keep referencing spacing as an issue, but if you look at enrollment from 2020, it has decreased or stayed stagnant in the past few years. I understand that the related service providers and counselors are now part of the concern. However, like wellness has its own classroom. So if a related service provider is providing us, OT 2 times a cycle, why would the OT not have her room and the explorations or the wellness teacher would rotate their specials? I don't know if all these things have been thought about. Sorry. You talk about improving outcomes, but I don't see how a 15-minute bus ride would do that. And then looking at a proposed schedule of 20 minutes of ELA would increase any type of PSSA or Keystone assessment scores. So I think that also needs to be taken into consideration. And I have a hard time understanding, we're talking about a lot of changes, a lot of staffing changes, a lot of changes for students, and I have a hard time understanding how you are going to provide enough training to your staff when we're talking about schedule changes, increasing instructional time, or possibly decreasing, and then having more case managers, more special ed kids at each school. I don't understand how staff and administrators would be prepared for that. You're also talking about increased discipline in the likelihood if there's that many more students in each building. So I think, are you adding deans and now we're adding administrators? I don't know how everyone would be able to meet the student need in the overall run. And it does seem like, are we looking at a feasibility study and looking at the statistics, and enrollment would likely be going down because the overall trend is people are not having children. So in the long term, are we looking at a 2-year potential and then a decrease of enrollment, and now we're making really big changes? So I think all these things need to be thought about and worked through.
All right, I'll try to answer the transportation question, and I'll rely on my team for the remainder of the questions. So I'm going to start with the disclaimer. You asked about the bus driver shortage and the number of buses, whatnot. I'm going to start with the disclaimer. So we've been really planning this out. There's a lot of effort gone into how do we maximize this, how do we bring efficiencies, whatnot. And we are continuing to have this conversation with our busing company as well. This is not finalized yet, but based on the initial numbers that we are looking at, by going to this 3-tier transportation system, at this point, we have about 104 buses that we have, and we have plenty more routes, but we have about 104 buses that we run. Going to this 3-tier system from this 2-tier that we have, we anticipate there's going to be a significant less number of buses that's been needed, because some of the buses that run the tier 1 is now available to go to tier 3. We already do that now, right?
Stephanie's child, who currently wouldn't need specialized transportation if she were to go to East, is now potentially going to need that specialized transportation with nursing services provided, so another cost measure, to be able to go to West.
Right, so there is definitely going to be increase in the specialized transportation, but based on the numbers that we're looking at, there's enough buffer to add those buses or routes as needed. And another thing I really want to point out too is, with this current tier system, right, it's not that efficient. So I'm sure some of your South families are currently today experiencing ride times about 30 minutes or more, or 40 minutes, because that's a 72-seater picking up more students and weeding through college. By the time it gets to South, it's already 35 minutes, 40 minutes. So the system the two-tier system is probably not that efficient when compared to the proposed system that we're having with a smaller number of buses, fewer stops, and a smaller bus size. Hopefully that answers your question, and I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Ross.
So I think that your concerns have come through loud and clear. Your questions are ones that we're taking very seriously. I think we have some debriefing to do and some follow-up communication. It concerns me that some are indicating some people aren't aware of this, and that certainly is something we want to address. There is a web page that's been developed. The presentation from the end of January is there, where there was a little bit more detail about some of the different options that were presented. However, it's clear to me that some additional communication would be very helpful, as well as us needing to discuss and think about what you've presented tonight, particularly in the area of transportation. It is clear that's a major concern. So I am happy to meet with groups of parents if that would be helpful in a more intimate setting. We will follow up. There will be conversation at the board meeting Monday. That's a public meeting if you're interested. It's also live streamed, but I am also happy to have a smaller group conversation with parents if that's something that you would prefer. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. So
Sure.
it's going to be talked about Monday.
Yes.
When would a decision be made?
The board would be requested to consider action in April or May. So I don't predict that happening in March this month.
So like within a month and
Spring, yeah. The idea would be to get a decision from our board before the end of the school year. So March 3rd, Monday, is a work session. I will present some information from all of the conversations that have been held, some of the feedback that's been presented, the concerns, the supports, and then invite our board to request additional information. What else do you need? What else do you want? Before you are then asked to take action on this recommendation.
My only other, I don't know if it would be a recommendation or something else that can be done, is I feel like I've gone to like most of these at this point, and coming to this is nice, but I feel like maybe something of this degree should be to a degree over communicated, or
Yeah.
maybe next letter that gets sent out, just say, I just want to put this out there again. This is coming up for discussion. Here's a link to here. Here's a link to here, and maybe just kind of, even if people don't read their emails all the time, at least like due diligence is done. Like it's
Right.
been communicated again. You know, like just kind of drive it home. You know.
And I very much appreciate that. I'm thinking as we're sitting here, I'll put a newsletter together for tomorrow. I know you get presented the principal's newsletters on Friday. It can be overwhelming, but I think I'd like to send one out to sort of address some of the points that have been raised this evening. But yes, absolutely, that's come through loud and clear, so I appreciate that suggestion, yeah.
Put like bold in the subject, like something like that.
Oh, like please read? Like you just don't read the superintendent's information?
That's
You know,
correct.
automatically? Good answer. Yes, we will. Yes.
That's a good idea.
And something in print. Yeah.
For school events and home and school and come to Chick-fil-A and let's go to Handel's ice cream. Put something in the kids' folder.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. That's
My cows are flooded with bright orange paper, which is wonderful. You're getting the message across.
yes.
So put it in their folders. Take the time to do a QR code, and maybe it'll be like, it will help doing both. Because I am very guilty. I do not check my emails. The reason why I know about this is from Jill Heist.
Yeah. Jill's been an advocator. Yes.
I'm the worst person to check emails.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, okay, I'll help.
Good point. And you know, we've
That people don't know about it.
yeah, it's certainly raising some serious questions. So we want to try and work on that. And the idea that we put something in print, we don't often do that, but in this case, that may work better for some people, and that's what we want. We want to reach everybody, or as many people as possible.
Just a quick, I'm not going to harp on the bus thing anymore because I think we did that. But as far as the 5th grade start time, we're moving them up an hour. And again, I think someone else mentioned that, but that's counterintuitive to how
Up
we're
an
supposed
hour?
to be treating 5th graders. So they would my student currently gets on the bus at 8:14. So now you're going to put her in 5th grade to be starting at 8:14. So getting her on a bus at 7:15 from Collegeville Glen. And they don't get sleep. Like, that's a well-known research issue that these kids should be sleeping in later. And then, and just on top of that, the phone issue. I think the goal is to have less phones in schools. But if you're going to put my kid on a bus for 45 minutes in the morning, she's going to be exposed to other kids who have cell phones on the bus with no supervision. And the number of kids with phones in schools is going to increase, and it's going to be detrimental for their mental health.
Thank you.
And one more thing, did we,
Sure.
and I meant to say this ahead of time, but it feels like this was very solution oriented. We started with the solution and then we worked backwards. Like, this is very clear that this is what you wanted, or that this is what the administrative felt was best. For
Right.
whatever reason, I understand there are many very valuable things that could come from doing this, but it very much feels like you worked backwards and the South families are getting thrown under the bus to achieve your goal. There's no data to support that the South families are going to benefit from this. All of the South families are going to have a detriment to this. My daughter goes to piano at 4:30. Now she's going to get home later. I've got to get my son off the bus who's going to be at a different school. She's going to have kids at 3 different schools. She doesn't even have the option to get one kid to get to the doctor's office. You're going to see decreased attendance because if my daughter has an 11 o'clock dentist appointment, I'm not taking her to school before in 5th grade. Whereas if she's at South, she can get on the bus, she can go to school, I pick her up for the dentist, we're gone for 30 minutes, and then we come back to school. Like, there's going to, and I have the opportunity to do that. There's families that these kids miss the bus. They're not taking their kids to school because they have to get to work. Like, I can't spend an hour out of my time to take my kid to school, go all the way back to my house, and then drive to the hospital. It doesn't work. My kid's not going to go. My kid will go to school, but there's plenty of families whose kids are just not going to go to school. And to not recognize that is to not understand the community in which we live.
Okay, so I appreciate certainly the frank conversation. I regret that there's the level of frustration that there is. We will absolutely debrief. We're going to work on the communication. There will be more conversation Monday night at the board meeting. There is opportunity for public comment at the board meeting Monday night. You can have your voice heard if that's something you're interested in. And our board listens. They're very thoughtful when individuals come to the podium, so your voice is important to them. So I have a couple people I wanted to follow up with some questions that you asked, but I would like to be succinct, so I'm going to, this is Ms. Laura White. She is our board president.
Hi, folks. I wasn't actually planning to say anything, but I hear the passion in your voices and I hear your advocacy. Mr. Liggett is here as well. And even if we are not here, I promise you wholeheartedly that all 9 of us listen and watch all of the community meetings and feedback. I was at both special education meetings. Those meetings were not recorded for the privacy concerns that surround some of the more intimate nature of the families. Yes? I will work with Ms. Aducci. I'll work with Ms. Aducci and Dr. Russell on that. I did actually bring that up. With regards to communication, I want to be very, very clear that I am hyper aware as a parent in the district that sometimes things fall through the cracks. 100%. You skim something, you see it was one place, then you can't find it again. I understand that. I have asked very clearly that meetings going forward from basically these meetings on be posted on the district website. I'm sure if any of you follow on the district website on Facebook, it's not always the friendliest place. So we try to be very, very aware and careful to convey information so that parents understand and know it in a productive and positive manner. When you are frustrated, things boil over, emotions run high, and we all absolutely want what is best for all of our kids. All of our kids. It's not just about one family or one school or one child. It is about all of us collectively as a community. And, you know, if you've watched some of the meetings, you know that Mr. Liggett has done his due diligence in looking at additional options and concerns. For the entire time that I have been on the board, which is now over 5 years, we have been talking in some fruition about a plan like this. Now, the fact that now you know about it does not mean that it was not previously talked about. And that is understood. But now it's like red alarm because now it's here, right? So when you talk about, was this thought about, was this thought about, was this thought about, I have, and I know that our board feels the same way, and majority, our administrators truly do work day in and day out to make sure that every single avenue and consideration, especially for our youngest and neediest learners, is thought of. But nothing is a one-size-fits-all solution. There always is going to be give and take. And so if you cannot hear any other message from me to all of you that are here, and I appreciate all of you for coming out, because it is hard to get to meetings, especially during the week, especially at night. Sometimes we see each other, I don't know, for every day, for sometimes multiple times a day. Our administrators, they truly are working to make sure that every voice is heard and considered, and some of what you saw, which was just a snapshot, is the best scenario. Now, the backwards mapping, I take full responsibility for backwards mapping. That's the way my brain works. When I review slide decks before they go out to the public, I always say to Dr. Russell, where are we trying to get to? Let's do that first, and let's look backwards. And I think a lot of times when you have an overview, you're able to understand some reasonings behind it. So I guided that. I guided that strategy, and I feel like I want to thank all of you, Mr. Ganesh, Mr. Marsh, Dr. Sachs, Mr. Creedon, and Mr. DeAndrea, all of our principals, our special ed team that talked tonight. This is not easy for administrators to do. Like, us parents, we are a rough crowd. You know, we go really for the jugular when we 100% mama bear. But you need to understand that these professionals, they thought about it. They thought it through before they put anything out there. And I guess I just want to convey that to you. I know that sometimes it doesn't always seem that way. I know that sometimes perception, in some instances, we don't need to debate it. This is just my point of view, and I'm just, as a representative of the community to the school district, I'm just relaying to you. Over the last 5 years in community meetings, in education meetings, in wellness meetings. And so, I invite all of you to come out and join us on Mondays. I am there the first 2 Mondays of every month, 7 o'clock. Every community member is entitled to speak. Mr. Leggett loves to listen. And so, as all of us do. And so genuinely, I wasn't honestly going to say anything tonight, and I'm not trying to go on the defensive at all. I'm just trying to provide a perspective of someone who has been in conversations on both sides of things. So anyway, I just wanted to, also to thank administration. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
I wanted to reiterate sort of what she was saying about the information out there. I went to the website that said, you know, here's the information, and it's links to the board meetings, and people don't have 2-3 hours to watch all of the meetings to find the like bits and pieces of relevant information. And I think it would be really helpful to have like bullet points to present to the parents with data. Like, I keep seeing a mention of policy 126. Which is class size. What is policy 126? I don't know what that is. How many kids are allowed in a classroom in PV? I'm asking you.
So let me just back up. If you go to the home page of our website, under the news, which is a section in the middle of the page actually, there is grade level realignment proposal. There's a link to a page, and that page then has some background information, an intro, and then the slide deck from the 30th. And the schedule for the meeting tonight. So I'm not sure if you were referring to that or not. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah. So that, again, that's clear to me tonight that needs to be communicated more effectively. When I reference policy, if you go into board docs, and again, it's the school board tab, so it's complicated, it would probably be better if we sat down and talked about it or walked through it as a small group. But if you go to the school board tab, it takes you into a second platform. It's called board docs. That's where all the information is for our school board, agendas, meeting minutes, backup, and policies. One of the major responsibilities of our board is to develop policy. That's what they do in addition to balancing a budget or approving a balanced budget. Policy 126 sets up guidelines for class size. So that's what I was referring to, and I should have explained that more. It's 18 to 21 for kindergarten through second. It's 23 and 24 for third and fourth grade, and it's 25 to 27 for fifth and sixth grade. Sure. Okay, you're right. I think that would be helpful. There is an enrollment report that comes along with every board meeting, so that information is available in board docs. What I need to do is help you to know how to access it, and I'll do that. I'll work on that. Yeah. Okay, I can help you with that. I can educate. Yeah. It's
Like you're like, oh, the information is all out there. You can go find it. But why are you not presenting it all in a like beautiful little package for us to really be able to sit there and digest it in a meaningful way? Like for something exactly. Like, does our opinion matter? Because we went from the last meeting with 3 options to this meeting with this is the option. Like I was under the impression that this was going to be a review of the other meeting, but those options are just gone. Was that just up to the administrative task force, and you're just like, hey, these are other 3 options, but we already decided on this?
This is the recommendation of administration that was announced in January, and we were really trying to build upon the conversation in January and not just simply have a repeat. So that was the purpose of being a little bit more streamlined in the beginning. That slide deck is on the website, but I understand not everybody was there. Again, the communication gaps are coming through loud and clear, so we're going to work on that.
6 years ago when they tried to close South. They were going to close South and do the same exact model. If we would have closed South 6 years ago, imagine what our numbers would be like in elementary schools where we are busting at the seams today with 4. This is a model that's been talked about for a decade.
Like, was there ever the idea to rezone skip back? Like, if skip back
We rezoned South. We rezoned South 9 years ago. We put in the Evergreen.
why was that? That wasn't even an option on the last meeting. That wasn't even there. You keep harping on the fact that skip back is busting at the seams, and we're still building in skip back. There's going to be more families in skip back, but can we rezone? Do we have to uplift everybody's lives in South Elementary and beyond to keep friends together instead of keeping families together? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
2 elementaries that go to east and 2 that go to west. If we didn't build west in Zieglersville, which I swear we moved the Boyertown School District line to build that building, then it wouldn't be an issue. No one would be having to drive an hour to get there.
It's a great idea in concept.
It's a concept.
In reality, it is horrible for some families.
Yeah.
And you can't overlook that.
For a quarter of families, realistically, I mean, we are 1/4 of the children that are going to be dealing with this situation. And I understand what you say, like, it's great, this is the best way that we have, whatever, but the best for most, not for all. And so what are you going to do for our kids? Because they're the 25% that are getting the shaft in this whole situation. Just wait for people to leave in droves, to send their kids to Holy Cross.
Amen.
Where they
I'm looking into it.
where it's 1 mile away, and then maybe we'll come back in high school. Or if then we'll fall in love with Catholic school, which is what happened when we didn't have full day kindergarten and what happened during COVID. Look at the enrollment.
You said 70% of the people in this area are already sending their kids to private school.
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that.
Maybe I got it reversed.
So what I said was 70% of the individuals in our school district do not have children in our schools. Their children have graduated, or they just don't have children. So they're not impacted necessarily, but they pay tax.
We pay busing for private, right? For Holy Cross children. We pay those buses.
Yeah.
I will have children in 4 separate schools at some point, and there are many other families who will now,
Yeah.
because of this, instead of having siblings together, it's like all 4 of our kids are playing sports all over the
Right.
place. Like, it's just so far away. And beyond that, just, you're saying this is all for the kids, All these transitions for these kids, losing everything that they're comfortable with, switching every other year is so much. They're switching that many transitions. They go from these 5th grade kids to the 6th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then high school. You're just uprooting them. It's too much change. It's taking them from communities that feel safe in, putting them with so many more kids
So I think, you know, now we're getting very personal, and that was not the intent, but you have expressed some overarching, it is personal, but it's, you have presented some important overarching concerns that impact a lot of people in the district. Again, I would like to follow up with some more communication. I would like to offer additional conversation if that's helpful. I invite you to come out to a public board meeting, but I think I feel much better informed by where you are in your thinking as a school community, and absolutely appreciate that and would like to really work in response to that, debriefing with our team and thinking about how we communicate and where we go from here. So I appreciate you coming out.
Like, is there a chance this is not the only option though? Because I feel like this is just, we're on a collision course. By April or May. Like, is there a chance for you to figure something else out, or are we all just here spinning our wheels? Like,
So some of it depends on the board. The administration believes that the 5678, I'm sorry, the 5678 is the best option for students, and that we can work through the transportation and the logistics, because Skip Back does something very similar. That's what they experience right now. And somebody, you asked me, why does Skip Back go out to West? I'm sorry, I thought you asked about why Skip Back students would transition to West. So I misunderstood. At any rate, Skip Back experiences very similar travel times and distances to what South is. Yeah. So I'd have to check the data, but that's not what I have. But I have to check the data, and that's her experience. Sure. We actually thought about inviting adults. Absolutely. That is a possibility. Yep. Okay. Yep. Yep. All right, so I think I want to bring us to a close. I'm happy to have some follow-up conversations after we turn off the recording. And again, you have opportunities to continue to have your voices heard, and we will work on communication. Thank you for coming out. So we're going to stop the recording.